All right, now we're continuing with the paint. Um, all right, so we're gonna start with a moisture because right now we're trying to determine what our shape of our paint bean peel is gonna be. So I'm gonna do an auto levels. We're gonna do a scale of 2 on the moisture, like so, and then we're gonna blur it a little bit by 2. And I'm going to change my uniform color on our roughness to 0.5 just to make it more matte. So before, after. Okay, after our, if I turn the quality up to 1, I sometimes do. Now we're going to use this cool thing that we used in our concrete tutorial, quantize grayscale. And it's basically going to quantize it and make it into steps where it takes the values here and you can increase the amount of steps. So we're going to change this all the way up so you can see what it's doing here. So here we have 2 steps, 3, 4, and it's basing it all based on our grayscale here. So black here gives us the lowest, a low point here. And he's basically taking an average and dividing it by 10. Okay. And then we have an offset of 1. What offset does is it basically pushes out. So we get more variety. Okay. And then we're going to do a slope blur here. And then we're going to need a clouds 2. I might mess up a little bit. I'll try not to because I did this over a span of like a week and there was a lot of going back and forth. So when I did this, it wasn't just one shot. So I had to keep like reorganizing my graph. But that's okay. Okay. We're going to do a random, I have a random seed here of 6. Just to make sure it's the same. Everything else can stay the same. Scale of 1, disorder of 0. Turn your samples all the way up, always. And then we want to do intensity of 1, not 10. And we want to change our mode to max. So now we're getting some jaggedness here if I turn this off. So it's very curvy, it's very unrealistic of paint chipping. We want it to look like this. Then here, we're going to do this. Here, we're going to do a Perlin noise. And for this one, we're going to do scale of 16. Then I'm going to copy paste this slope blur here. And then plug this on top like this. And they're both of these are going to share the same clouds too. Then for this guy, same settings. And then we're going to blur both of these. So we're going to do these both together. Not blur, blur. We'll do 0.25 for the top one here. And for this one, 0.4. I don't know, do you guys think I should keep all of this height in the same video or split it into 2? I'm already having second thoughts. Okay, then let's do a scan. We'll see how long this runs. If it runs over 30, we want to make it its own video. We need 2 scans, so copy paste. And then for the top one, we're going to do 0.4. And a contrast all the way up. And then for this one, we're going to do 0.25. And I'll explain what these do in a little bit. Just think of these guys as the mask for the paint chipping. And then we're going to do another slope blur. And this one's going to be 32 as usual, 0.5, and then leave the mode to blur. And then we're going to copy this guy and then paste it, except the bottom one is going to have an intensity of 1. And then we are going to move these guys down a space, do a clouds 2. We're going to do a seed of this one of 2. We're going to do a transform 2D. And we are going to do a 2 times. We're going to hit this right here. And what it's going to do, it's going to zoom in half. And then we're going to use that node that we used before, make it tile. This is to fix the tiling problem. Because if we hit spacebar in the 2D viewport, you can see here that this is before the 2D transform. It tiles, but then here the tiling breaks, which is not good. So we use this make it tile to fix the tiling, but what it does is it blends it to try and fix that. So we're going to change our mask to 0.25 to make it blend in a little better. Like that. It's not perfect, because you can still kind of make out the square, but it's okay because no one's going to notice. Actually, mine looks different on my preview. Let me see what's different. Oh, I have the disorder on the clouds too. It's at 2.5. And that looks like a better blend than before. I'm not entirely sure what this order does. Let's look at it together. So if I turn in this, what I noticed is 1 is the same as 0. So this is 1 and this is 0. So it's almost like it's doing like it's coming back to itself. So 0.5 is the middle way, and it just kind of moves everything. So normally I do 0.5 if I ever need to move this. Seems like it's spinning in place or something in a bunch of different spots, but maybe someone can tell me what it's actually doing in the comments. Or maybe it's just it just mixes it up. Maybe it's just some disorder. Some disorder never hurt anybody. Okay, and then we're gonna plug this guy into the bottom. And the reason why I did this is because I wanted a lower frequency clouds. Because the higher the frequency, so like the higher this is, the more, well actually I have to turn this off. The more noisy the slope blurring is. And I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle, so I lowered it. Something else you could do actually that I probably should have done now that I think about it is if we move this back to clouds, a little tip. What I've seen some professional substance designers people do is they lower the resolution on the image. So like you gotta make sure these match so you get a square. You lower the resolution and they can give you, let's see what the difference is. And because it's smaller, the frequency is as if it was, actually, is it doing anything? You know what? Let me stop pretending like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know. I've seen people do this and it does work in some cases, but probably just not this one for whatever reason. Let's not go off script. I gotta remember to cut that part. Makes me look bad. Okay, after our slopes, we need a vector warps, and this is, if you guys remember, this is so that we can break up the copy paste. we can break up the noise. We're going to do an intensity of 5. Okay, so now we need to take a pause here, and we need to go back and we need to create the flood fills to plug into these guys. So let's see, where do we need to go? Okay. Oof. Okay, this is a bit of a sidetrack here. We're gonna go to the beginning, and what I need. Okay, this is gonna be fun. Okay, yeah, we might need to break this into 2 parts. Okay. Let's go back all the way to the beginning. And from the tile generator, we're going to pull out. And we are going to do an edge detect. And what we're going to do here is do a width of 1 and a roundness of 0. Now by lowering these 2 values to the lowest they can possibly go, because when we're doing our stepping for our original tile, we have different gray values here. And they don't all have to be different. They just need to be different than what they're touching. So this guy here and this guy are the same amount of white. So if we look at our information and we hover here, this is 255 and this is 255. So these are the same kind of white, but because they're separated by a different value, then this gets picked up as their own, right? Like this is not part of this one because how can these two connect when they're being divided by this stuff here? What happens if we do this to 0? Nothing. Okay, yeah, so keep it at 1. Okay, oops. Crap. Okay, I don't know what tolerance does. It rarely does anything for me, so I just leave that at 0. Okay, so it's kind of hard to explain what I'm trying to do from this point, so we're just going to keep going. So from here, we're going to do a flood fill. And then from the flood fill, we're going to do another flood fill, but it's going to be random color. So now instead of just doing islands of white, now it's going to give us islands of random colors. Like that. One setting that I normally never turn, but I felt like I needed to for this part is this one right here. I am going to change this to no failure mode. Is that the right one? Yeah. And I wonder why it's giving me different results than what I'm seeing. No failure mode, no failure mode. Did I do anything in here? -1? Nope. Okay, turn that back off. Oh, what happened? Wasn't this just a different color a second ago? You know what? I'm not gonna question it. What it should be this. This stuff here should be one color. When I looked away, they were different, right? I'm gonna have to go back and see what sort of black magic happened. I guess just rewind and see what I did to make a change. I don't know what I did because I ended up redoing this. All I did was change to no failure mode. Okay. This is what I thought I had, but somehow it... Okay. Okay, I guess it should just be this. No failure mode. Um, yeah, we want these plates to be one solid color. That was weird. Um, Actually, that's for something else. We do want the the difference. So let's change this to this one. Okay, sorry about that. We do need this, but that's gonna go below it, and that's gonna be for a later use for something else. So for this one, we're gonna do a distance. Sometimes for some reason when I drag off, it doesn't work. So you might have to click off, like click over here, and then do a distance, and then plug this into the bottom, and then drag from here. Do little connections. And then we're going to do a maximum distance like we've done in all our previous tutorials of 5,000 just to make sure that our pixels are pushing out and reaching the end. And to be safe, we just do a max number. They never overlap, but they do meet. And by doing a high number, you make sure that because you don't really know how much distance that is. Okay, so it seems like anything above 0 does it, but I always go to 5,000 or whatever just to make sure that it touches. Okay. Now, alright, hold on, I'm losing my mind right now. Okay, I apologize. This is correct, but we don't need all of this right now. So let's do this. We're gonna keep it, but we're going to pull from this guy, and we actually just need this. But it's okay because we will use this later. Now let's move this all the way up here. Just out of the way of everything else. Let's go a little bit higher. Because I actually used this for the color, but I ended up using this for, this part. Alright, so we're going to drag this out, like about here. And what we need to do is basically, we're going to repeat the edge detect process, but we want to detect, like for example, this next one is we want to detect these notches. So to do that, we are going to pull from before the levels. So from this guy, because we're doing the notches right now, we're going to go down the line. We need these guys. So we're going to pull out, and we're going to do a scan. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a second video. Let's do this. We're going to do a blend. And it'll make sense, don't worry. And then this histogram scan is going to be wait a second. Okay, 5, 6, 6. Okay. Sorry, I was losing my mind a little bit again. Okay, we're going to do a position of 0.5685 and then a contrast of 1. Now, the reason this should be subtract. Actually, let me check. Let me double check so I don't waste any more time. Okay. Alright, I see what I was doing. Okay. Let's leave this here for now. We need to do some more backtracking. Yeah, this is more complicated. This isn't just your baby's first tiles. Since we're on tutorial 4, we gotta step up the difficulty. Okay, so going back here, we're actually going to drag from the second guy here. And we're going to drag him out into a blend. And then we need this guy up here. And we're going to plug him into the top. And we're going to invert it. Okay. And then this guy should be set to subtract. Wait, why did I do all that? This could just be... Oh, actually, I could have just done an invert of this guy. And I think this is the same thing. Yeah, let's be smart. I don't know why I'm reinventing the wheel there. So yeah, let's just do this. And then we're going to plug this into a tile generator. And you guys should know what to do by now. 2 by 2 image input. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to drag out where are our notches. Okay, you should, actually we'll do it together. I'm going to grab everything past this guy here. Or actually everything before that. Let's do that. That should be easier. So grab all this, and then just make room for another node. And then we're going to put a blend in here. Actually, not in we're going to drag out of this guy and then do the blend. Because this is not going to connect here. And then, oops. Now this is coming from what we just did. So we're subtracting this max that we just made from this. So let's change to subtract. Now, this guy is going to plug into the scan that we made originally. And the difference is that this new one has this side cut off. And that's important because before it was cutting into where it shouldn't. It was cutting into here. And this notch typically starts here, so we wouldn't want it to cut here. So let me redo. So we wanted this, because now, after this, when we do an edge detect again, and we turned all the settings down to the basic, don't worry about this. Sometimes you just have to live with some stuff. Now, it's not cutting into this, and this is what we want. Because now that we're doing an edge detect, because detecting this difference, it's creating an island for us, which is the shape of our notch. But we're going to delete this for now. We need to continue subtracting stuff. Okay, so the next thing we're going to subtract, so let's do a blend. Change this to subtract. And then we're going to need another histogram scan. And we're going to just leave it here hovering for now. Now let's see, let's plug it into this. Okay, this one's easier. This one's just coming from... This is coming from this guy. So this is the plate that we added. So before this is no plate, and then this one's with plate. And then from this one, we're going to pull from before the levels as usual, and we're going to plug that. We're going to make a connector here. And then this is going to go into the scan. And then let's remove that. And then this scan should be .268 and a contrast of 1. So what I'm doing here is subtracting. And I wanted to subtract this from here, from these bounds, from here to here to here, you get the point, right? Now the reason why I have to basically eyeball it, because the original bounds is 0.5. This is the original bounds. And I am going lower than the original. Don't worry about this stepping here. Because in here, our shape, our plate, is actually bigger than the socket. See, this is the shape. And then it stops here because of our max blend. If I did add, you would see the original bounds of the thing. So because we're actually using a smaller version of the original, we need to compensate in our histogram scan position. Because otherwise, if this was the original size, then this division would be bigger, or subtraction would be bigger than this. And we need it to be exact. So there was some eyeballing, some sliding around and finding the sweet spot on this one. I'm going to hit D to dock it to take up less space. All right. Now we need another subtract. And what needs to get subtracted from this one is the other plate. So the ones that are missing on the side. So it should just be the next one after. Yep, so right here. So from this guy, do a scan, plug it into the top, dock it, change this to subtract, and then go back to the histogram scan. And then for this one, we're going to do 1 and 1. So that's this guy here. So before, after. Okay. Now we do our edge detect. So again, lower your width, lower your edge roundness, and then we get this. Now here, we do a flood fill again. And you understand why we are doing this flood fill over and over again in different times. Flood fill, random color. This is the hard part, and then it's going to be pretty easy with the rest of the peeling. Click outside and do distance because it doesn't like to do the thing. Hold shift and click and drag to move the connection to the front. And then from the edge detect, we're going to do this, like that, and it's going to go in here. And again, we're going to change this to 5,000. Okay, so now we get this, which is what we wanted. Oh, this song slaps. Okay. Now we can drag this out. And then we need to make a connector here. And then from here, we're going to drag, and these are going to go into our original vector warps that we did a while back. And then we need another one for the bottom one. Don't forget to change your intensity to 5. Okay, so I'm going to explain why we did all this. So what the vector warp does is it basically shifts like a similar to a 2D transform, right? When you have this and you move the transform, you're panning the texture around, right? Now it pans everything together. What vector warp grayscale, I explained this in my previous video, I think in the tile one, but the tile video I need to redo because I didn't notice my cropping was bad and you can't see anything. Rookie mistake. But what the vector warp does is it basically pans everything. It pans your texture, just like a 2D transform, but it pans based on these these color islands, right? So every different shade of a color or hue of a color is a different direction. So if you were to look at like a 2D plane and you see your X and your Y, X is typically red and Y is typically green. And if you move it, basically how a normal map works, right? Green is one direction, red is another direction, and then when you have a circle, you can see the color wheel. I hope what I'm saying is correct. This is how I understand it, right? So you have green here, then you have like teal, then it's heading towards like blue, violet, pink, red, orange, yellow, and it does the loop, right? Because every color corresponds to a different direction. So when we go back here and we create this random color, every color is a different direction. So similar to a 2D transform where it pans the texture in a different direction, if we change this to 0, here it pans the texture into different directions based on these islands. Now you're probably thinking, Penguin, why do we need this? The reason why we need this is because I'm trying to make you guys not newbie substance designers. And what I mean by that is, if we look at our 3D viewport here, the reason why I added a crease was because I didn't want these plates to just be one continuous plate endlessly, right? There's someone that installed them one at a time, or machine or whatever. And if we have like a noise here, we don't want the noise to carry on from here to here. We want the noise to be different based on the plate that is on. So by having this divider here, it's going to shift or pan this texture, this in one direction and this in another direction, which is good because we don't want, so let's do a quick setup here. I don't know, give me some, you know what, just give me some clouds. Don't do this part, it's just watch. Okay, let's say this is our paint peeling. Okay, now I'm going to do subtract, but I'm going to do a levels because I don't want it to be that drastic. Let's say like that. Actually, no, let's go all the way. So let's say this is our paint peeling. We don't want our paint to peel from here to here, unless you do want that, but I don't. So I add this because now these color islands are a divider. So now it doesn't, so like if we look here, we go to top down. So this thing right here is just spilling over everything and it doesn't care. Now this would be fine if like someone dropped paint, right? Like wet paint, right? And it splattered. Then you would want the paint to splatter on everything or wherever it lands, right? So it's fine if it overlaps there. But for something like this, I don't think that paint would rust everywhere from the same place and kind of branch out, especially if those pieces of metal are separate, right? And that's what this crease is supposed to represent. This is one tile, this is one metal plate, this is another metal plate. So I would expect that paint would start peeling in different spots. Sometimes you'll get some overlap, which is fine, but it's not like it's coming from the same spot. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, we don't want this. We want it to stop here. And so we created this colorful, basically, flood fill to help us with that. Okay. All right. I'm going to redo my first tutorial because like I said, the cropping was bad. And I'm going to go over this more detail there, but I don't want to take up everybody's time. Okay, so we're going to do another blend here. We're going to do an add like this. Actually, this should probably be a... Sometimes I just go through them and guess, or not guess, but try a bunch of them out. Screen is what we want, I think. Hey, I need to fix that on my original, so I make a note of that real quick. Okay, yeah, blend is better here. Or screen is better in this blend. Okay, then we're going to do a blend here. Now we do some backtracking again here. We need to pull from our treads generator. So from here, we're going to pull out, make a connector, and then drag all the way over here-ish, make a connector. And then what we need is a histogram scan. We're going to pull from this connector again and do a scan. And we're going to make this 0.5 and 1. And then we're going to do another flood fill. And remember, flood fill only works when you have black and white. It detects the white and it excludes the black. Then we're going to do a flood fill to random grayscale. And basically what this does is it gives all our little islands a different shade of, or a different shade of grayscale. Then we're going to do a histogram select. So just type select, histogram select, blur. Okay, this blur is going to be set to 1 and quality 1. Now for the select, we're going to do 0.5, 0.2, and 0. Now what select does, and I'll go over this more in my next tutorial, or not next, but I think I have number 6 is going to be a redo of 1. But basically what this does is so here it gives us a set value of random grayscale. Instead of having to do, let's say you're like, oh, I don't like this seed, you can change the seed over here, or you can do this histogram select and you're able to basically, don't go too far or you start getting this, but you can change the selection, I guess. So change your contrast. You can change your contrast here if you want only white, and this is a good way to do like randomizer basically. This is the amount of however many you want, and then this is like randomizer. So let's undo that. And let's go to 0.5, 0.2, and 0. And then we're going to blur by 1 and 1. Now we are going to do a this is not right. Let me check this. Alright, actually we don't need this. Yeah, we don't need this blend that I was gonna do. So we're going to drag from this guy and it's gonna go into, so from here drag out like this, and then we're gonna drag this into a blur. And I'll explain what we're doing in just a second. And then from this blur, we're going to do a scan again into a slope blur. this is going to go in here. And then this should be set to add linear dodge. And then this blur is going to be 1, 1, 1. The scan is going to be 0.95 on the position. Leave the contrast at 0. And then the slope blur 32, intensity of 0.5, and this set to leave at blur. And then we are going to plug in from the make a tile photo grayscale. We're going to drag out and plug that into the bottom here. Okay. So keep moving this down. Add a connector here. And from here, we're going to pull down and do a normal. Sorry guys, I know a lot of this doesn't make sense right now, but it'll make sense soon. This is all just to do one little thing. Well, because it's not a little bit. We're going to do a curvature Sobel or Sobel. Actually, let's just plug this in so you guys can start seeing. And then we're going to change this to 0.01. So we're not done, but just to kind of show you what's happening. So now you guys are probably like, where's he going with this? So I'm going to put a scan here just so that we can visualize this better. We're going to change it to 1 and contrast of 1. So you can see here, let me increase this. Don't do this part, just watch. So what I'm doing here is I am subtracting. This is our paint. And what I was doing here is basically adding the peeling, to these guys, and I use this randomizer here so that some are peeling more than others. So some are completely peeled and some are less peeled. And I'm basically adding the layers so that they all work together. So if I go to these two scans right here, I'm going to put a frame around them. I have two types of peels. I have like small isolated islands peeling, and then I have like these big peeling boys. So like if you increase this guy, you can see that the peeling increases. And they're additive. So like if I decide to go to the little guy here, make changes back to 0.4, and then these little guys, and I increase them, these guys basically blend into these guys. So like, let me click over here. So this is like the big guys and the little guys added together. And the reason why you have to make sure that they're added is because, these go up and they merged into the other ones. Then it kind of like they merge together and create like a bigger, basically paint peel. Which is good because that way it's procedural, right? You don't have to keep adjusting. Like if you move this one, you don't have to go back and be like, oh crap, I need to account for this one. This is all being done here. And I'll explain once we're done setting it up. But I just wanted to show you what was happening so far. So let me undo. Okay. So I undid up to this part. We don't need this guy. We're going to change this back to, what was it, 0.005. And it's changed to subtract. And you can see it there a little bit. Alright, now let's finish this. Okay, so back to the curvature Sobel. We're going to leave our normal intensity at 1. Our curvature Sobel at 0.5. Okay. God, I'm starving. We're going to do a scan here. And we're going to do a position of 0.35. And our contrast at 1. So what we're doing here now is right now our peel is happening on the surfaces, but no peel is happening on the edges, which is where you would see a lot of peeling, right? Because people will be walking over it and they'd be kicking the edges, right? Because of their feet, and they'd be kicking this and kicking here and stuff. So we want the peel paint or the peeling paint to also be peeling off the edges. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you would only see peel painting on the top corners, right? Not so much down here because someone's foot or someone's shoe or boot or whatever wouldn't go all the way down here and start scratching this. At least not, it'd be a lot less here than up here. That's not something I accounted for here, but you definitely, maybe we'll do that later. But right now everything's going to be peeling like evenly, that regardless of, you know, the bottom and the top. Okay, so after this scan, we're going to do a slope blur because right now our paint will be peeling pretty harshly. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So we need to make sure that similar to our small and large peeling islands merge together, we also got to make sure that our edges peel into it like so. And we're probably going to do green here as well. We'll leave it at that for now. Right, so if I'm going to just turn this up so we can see it more. You can see it right here. We're peeling the edges now. We're going to undo that. We're going to continue. So think of this as being the peeling. Now obviously this is way too harsh. We need to soften it up a little bit. We're going to move this down. Actually, we need more room. I'm going to grab all this. And we're just going to move. I'm going to get rid of this connector here. Just backspace it. Oh god, everything got shifted. Hold on. Okay. So after our histogram scan here, after the curvature, Sobel or whatever, we're going to do a slope. And then we are going to reuse this guy here. Not this clouds 2, but this clouds 2, which is why we have this extender here what was waiting for us. Now for the slope blur grayscale settings, we're going to do obviously our 32 for samples, and then intensity of 0.125, and we're gonna go with blur because I think I have max, but let's do blur because I want it to cut in and out. Actually, let's go with blur, and then we are going to blur this. And we are going to do an intensity of 0.5, very subtle, like this. Then we're going to do a levels. And the reason why we blur it is because, let's go to our levels. If we didn't have this, let's go to our levels and then let's do 0, 0.1, 0.4, 0, and 1. If I didn't have this blur, then the levels would have less of a range. But by blurring it and extending the reach, We're able to get more control with our sliders. So let's go back over here, change this to max. But yeah, I like blur. Because that way we get some spots where it's peeling more and other ones where it's peeling less. And it's all about variation. Now, we're going to add more variation. Let's slide these guys down. We're going to do another slope blur. And then we're going to do a new noise here, a purling noise. And for this purling noise, we're going to do 24. We're going to pull from it. We're going to do a levels. We're going to do a levels of 0.05. Actually, we're just going to hit the auto level button here. That's all we need to do. And then you should get the same numbers I do. Then we are going to plug this into the slope blur. Samples up. Intensity of 0.2. Leave it at blur. Then a histogram scan. And then another blend here. And we need a crystal, new noise, crystal 1. Scale of 16. So half the default. Into a levels. Put that on top. And then we're going to do subtract. And then for this scan here, we're going to do 0.5 and 0.65. So 0.5 and 0.65. So we're tightening up our blur. And then here, in order to break up our edge wear, because we don't want the edge wear to be completely white everywhere, we're going to subtract by this crystalline noise, which kind of resembles, like edges and cutting. We're going to go to our levels here. We're going to tune this levels. We're going to do 0, 0.37, and 0.58. So this tightens up our grayscale for our crystals, and we're able to subtract larger chunks. So where there's black, the paint is going to remain, and where it's white, it's going to peel off. And then that blends with an add. And then we're going to do a blur here. I think this is going to be close to the end. Yeah, we're almost done. We're going to do a very subtle blur of 1.75. Change our quality to 1. And then we have our levels. And then this guy. Now this guy should be set to subtract, because I think we set that last time. Yep. And then 0.01. Sorry, whoops. 0.01. So actually, let me do a quick little, let's do a blend up here. Let's do color. Let's do a gray in the middle. And then we're going to do a red. I like to do this to troubleshoot or to show, to visualize, have an easier time visualizing. So I'm going to plug this into my base color. And I think it should be this way. Yeah. So the red is what's going to be metal because it's going to be peeled off. That's where the paint is going to be missing. And, gray is obviously going to be our metal. So this is a good way to visualize what's happening. So I actually don't like my edge wear because it's like cutting in way too far out here. So let me fix some of this. And I think it has to do because of this guy. Maybe not that guy so much. Let's look at this guy's intensity is way too much. Let's do 0.1, because here it's looking nice and tight, and then here it's like, whoa, it's going too crazy. And let's change maybe to min. There we go. I'm not going to spend too much time playing around with this, but you can. But with this visualizer, red is going to be metal, gray is going to be paint. And then maybe we tighten it up a little bit more. Let's do on this scan here. You don't have to do this because technically these are the results or the settings that I have. So let's do like 0.9. Maybe tighten it up a little bit. Like that. Okay. Now we're just going to plug our uniform color back in because we don't need this anymore. And there's like just a little one other thing we're gonna do. It's the last step. From this blur, we're gonna pull out into an invert grayscale. Wait, let me just see what this is for. Okay. This part's really cool. This is very useful. So, pay attention. Okay. So, what I'm doing is I'm inverting, because right now this mask is where there's going to be, where the paint is going to be peeled. So I'm going to invert that. So now the white is actually what's still paint. And then from there, I'm going to do a non-uniform blur grayscale. And I'm going to plug the same thing into both slots. Now what this does is a blurs using itself, and you can see that I'm going to turn the samples all the way up and the blades all the way up. And then I'm going to turn the intensity down a little bit. So you can see here that it's creating a slope, right? So here is black, and then you can see the slope or the gradient getting brighter and brighter and brighter. So if we were to visualize this, let's plug this into our height. Actually, let me do a connector here and then plug this in here. So this is what it's doing, right? So here's our mask, and then it's creating a slope. Obviously this slope is super drastic, but it's creating a slope. Now this is when paint peels, or depending on the paint, there's usually a, like it peels outward, right? So let me get a reference here. Alright, so I typed in peeling paint on metal on Google. And if we look here, you can see that the paint peels and it ramps off, right? So you could pull on that. So I was trying to mimic a little bit of that here. So you can see here that it's sticking out more than the rest, right? And here it's like super tight, but here it's like sloping outward. So let's connect this over here. Go back to our normal stuff. So then after we do the non-uniform, we're going to invert it again. And then we're going to do a multiply, or let's do a blend. Change this to multiply. Let me change this on. And then from this original invert grayscale, it's going to go on the top. Like that. And then we're going to swap these two, select them and hit X. And then we're going to leave that at multiply. Now we're going to do another multiply, so let's do a blend. We're going to do a Perlin noise. We're almost done, guys. Maybe I should throw some jokes in here to make it a little bit more fun as you guys follow along. We're going to pull from the Perlin into our levels. For the Perlin, we're going to do settings of 24 and 0. And then for the levels, we're going to do 0.3 0.665, 0.5, 0.125, and 1. And I just want to tighten up the grayscale like this so that when I multiply, so what I'm doing is, so the white, so let's just finish it so you guys can see it. I'm going to do an add. And then we need a levels here, of course. And then for this level, we're going to do 0.1 for level high. So let me actually hide this by pressing Shift D to hide a connection without having to delete it. And let me hide this guy. Okay, so this is our paint before. Okay. Let me find a good large spot. Okay, like over here. Right? It's peeling on the edge. It's peeling on this big chunk here. Now if I bring in this back, you can see that it is, well, let me turn this down a little bit. Okay, right here. So you can see here that it's like flat and then it starts to slope up towards the edge. Right? Now it's sloping up everywhere with the same amount. So it's pretty much uniform. So if you look here at the mask, it's sloping, 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 sloping everywhere, and it's sloping up to the same height, to the same like maximum height. So by adding this multiply, we break it up so that it slopes up in some areas and in others not so much. So we want to have some variance on the slope. So if you look over here, it slopes up all around pretty evenly. And then by adding this multiply, we make it so that in some parts it is tighter to the metal, just like we saw in that pole, which I closed down so I can't show you again. And then here it slopes up, but here it's flat by adding this multiply. So you can see that this is where it's all even. And then here we broke it up a little bit, so it's not so even. Actually, we should probably do like 16. Actually, no, let's leave it at 24. And then let's turn this back down to 0.1 because this would be super thick layer of paint, which is probably way too much. Even that's probably way too much. Let's do 0.075. Okay, at distance it'll look good. We want it to be noticeable. Okay. And I think that might be the end of height. Wow, that was like a whole extra hour. So now, if we look at our height map, and we disable these two, then it's like we have no paint being chipped away. And then if we bring this one, this is our paint chipping, and then the second one is our sloping of the paint. Very cool, very cool. That very subtle detail of like the paint peeling, raising up, sloping up at the edges is, happens often, so that's definitely a detail you want to do. And it's all done via the this non-uniform blur scale. And then you gotta play around with the inverting to get it to go from the correct side. So we inverted this mask here. And then we did the blurring. But what actually happened here, it's raising from the bottom up. So we invert it to invert that scale. But this needs to stay black. So we multiplied it by its original or from this original invert, because anything multiplied by black or 0 is 0. And then we're able to retain the slope that we created here, or here, but we inverted, so the slope. And then we got rid of the center. And so then this makes more sense, right? You can actually like visually read this. This is black, and as it gets to the edges, it's sloping up. And then we broke the peeling up so that it's not all peeling the same everywhere. Actually, I'm going to change this to 0. So it should be, oops. So change this guy from whatever it was to 0. That way it's completely flat in some areas. Alrighty. Let me know what you guys thought of that length. If you thought it was the perfect amount, if I need to explain less, explain more, go faster, go slower, prepare better, have better, funnier jokes, whatever. So yeah, I'm going to leave everything as is like this because then we're going to move on to base color. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next part.